You may have seen the advertisement for the address today. The first part of it reads, inspiration. We all want it. Constantly and uppermost in many people's minds is how to change their behaviour and how to inject some inspiration into their lives. So with that in mind, I'm going to read you a few words written by John O'Donoghue, some Celtic wisdom. I was reminded of this piece by a person who came to see me through this last week, and I thought it's such a beautiful piece, and it speaks of inspiration in its own way, and I hope it will be meaningful for you as I read it. May the light of your soul mind you. May all of your worry and anxiousness about becoming old be transfigured. May you be given wisdom for the eye of your soul to see this beautiful time of harvesting. May you have the commitment to harvest your life, to heal what has hurt you, to allow it to come closer to you and become one with you. May you have great dignity. May you have a sense of how free you are. And above all, may you be given the wonderful gift of meeting the eternal light and beauty that is within you. May you be blessed. And may you find a wonderful love in yourself, for yourself. Many times, as I've driven through distant country places, I have paused a while to stroll through the unkept, often unused cemetery. Not out of any sense of morbidity, but rather in a sense to touch the sentiments of Thomas Gray's poem. Perhaps in this neglected spot is laid some heart once pregnant with celestial fire, hands that the rod of empire might have swayed, or waked to ecstasy the living lyre. Why did one or two from this such a lonely spot see the pointing finger, as it were, in the painting of John Everett Millais? And like the boy in the painting Walter Raleigh, they followed that finger and walked towards some distant horizon, while others in that country place stayed within their own fence line. No doubt some lived out their sound and stable lives, while others maybe squandered their valuable years in the excesses of alcohol. Or was their once fun-loving identity lost under the long years of some dreadful mental illness? We all want to have inspiration in our life. It has the power to transform our life, and it is one of the great gifts. We know that inspiration can arise within us. It can come from the environment around us. It can come out of our relationships, through people, through stories, from music, from architecture, or scientific discovery. Inspiration. It can arise out of the awareness of our place in the cosmos, in history, or in the evolutionary turning points at which we find ourselves. It can also be a powerful influence in just one fleeting moment. Some embrace it and are lifted by it. Others lose it, neglect it, devalue it, think they've had it. And like the Iona poem, The Bird of Heaven, it is gone. Catch the bird of heaven. Lock him in a cage of gold. Look again tomorrow, and he will be gone. Lock him in religion, gold and frankincense and myrrh. Carry to his prison, but he will be gone. I've sometimes sat close enough to members of the orchestra in the concert hall. And I've often been in awe and a degree of envy of each of them, tuning their instrument to the next and to all. But then sometimes I've been quite dismayed when occasionally I have overheard them grouching and grizzling about this or that as they prepare to play some of the great music like the Egmont Overture. And all of it can collapse. Lives are changed, and sometimes the ugliest behaviour is transformed by some experience of inspiration. But so little study has been given to it by the psychologists, the educationalists, and the psychoanalysts. So little study has been given to this major part of our life. We know inspiration is the springboard for creativity. We know inspiration facilitates progress towards valued goals. We know inspiration increases well-being and the sense of goodness in life. We know inspiration can transform our view of ourselves and of human behaviour. We know that inspiration can lift us above our baseline experience. If inspiration comes in all of these areas, why would we not study it more? Why would we not embrace it more? Why would we not enjoy it more? Instead, it is often glossed over, even within religious circles. We gloss over it as it is attributed to some idea of the Holy Spirit, probably repeated in that noted 9th century hymn, "Come, Holy Ghosts, our hearts inspire, and lighten with celestial fire." The widely published Stephen Gratz once wrote, "All sorrows can be born if you put them in a story, and the story can become an inspiration." Often people don't have the words for their story. Maybe nobody helped them to talk about their story, to talk about their experiences. They're out of touch with their feelings. They're trapped in their unhappiness and fear, perhaps. But they may insist that everything is fine. Their life, their boss, their partner, their kids. They may need them to be neurotic or depressed or whatever they are. They often say they want to change, but as one patient said to me, not if it means changing. We're sometimes surprised to discover that inspiration is enclosed within our own stories. Inspiration is there. If we're not in tune with it, if we've closed it down, it cannot do its work. So inspiration can come from other people, their story, their life, their wisdom. We see it in people like Nelson Mandela, Leo Tolstoy, Martin Buber, Nikos Kazantzakis. We've talked about them many times. It comes within our music. It comes within our jazz, as we heard it here this morning. It can come within music from Chopin through to Shostakovich and more. Where is the source? Where is the source and the expression of inspiration in your life? That's what we need to know. Because sometimes we say we don't have so much inspiration. So many people, so many institutions claim that they have a part to play in changing human behaviour. The courts, the police, the politicians, our peer groups, the schools, the universities, the churches, architects, advertisers, salesmen, sports identities. marriage partners and parents and psychologists and psychiatrists. Yet who can change? They all have a part to play, but who can change our out-of-control aggression? Who can change those bad temper outbursts? Who can change those miserable down moods, those destructive habits and obsessions? We know about them. We say of one, he's been a bachelor for so long, he's so fixed in his ways, he can never change. Or we say of another, she seems to be such a nice person, but close up, she is wired for war. Or another, we say his self-worth was blown apart when his mother walked out when he was 12 years of age. Now he's 62. And for 50 years, he's limped on with low self-worth. How can we rebuild self-worth at 62? And some say, well, he's too old to change. Too old! You can't teach an old dog new tricks. But you know, I've had old dogs and I've taught them new tricks. We say of this one, she can't relinquish her prejudice. Well, maybe she doesn't want to. If you don't want to, then you'll hold on to it. Or he's a nasty piece through and through. And so it goes on. How can we change human behaviour? Without some inspiration, we're likely to become stranded in the eddying currents of an uninspired life. Or we can become caught in behaviours that can mean we no longer see the beckoning horizon. We can become so deceived by our own impulses and our own attractions to other pursuits, and we remain within our own limiting fence line. If your view of things is blocked, you don't see the full picture. If you've closed off to insight into yourself or your situation, then your behaviour is likely to go awry, and you can't be what you could be. So the gospel reading today came from the last few verses of St. Mark's Gospel, chapter 10. Jesus asked the blind man, "What do you want me to do for you?" And he replied, "I want my sight. I want to see the world. I want to see in the fullest sense. Because if I can see into myself and beyond myself, I'll be a different person, of course." So I plead with you, don't get jammed up in the arguments about whether this is a literal miracle of Jesus or a piece of fiction. See it as a very powerful comment on how human behaviour can change. It changes as you see yourself clearly. Everything changes when you see what is happening around you, when you actually see it, perhaps. Yes, we might see and choose not to see. We might see and stay the same as we were. We might see and say, I wish things were different, but I can't do anything about it. The man in the gospel story decided it was time to change. So he went to someone, to the man passing through the town, and he said, "Will you help me see things as you see them?" I see this miracle happen every day. A person says to me, "Help me see what I need to see. Help me see what I would like to see, the best." And it happens. Their behaviour steps out of that limited fence line and changes as their eyes are opened to insight. That man wanted to see the world with different eyes. The same applies to any one of us. When we see the world differently, we could change our behaviour. Back in my school days, soil erosion was a matter of urgent concern. Farmers were going on doing their work in the way they'd always done it. They knew how to plough and sow. They knew how to reap and store in their barns, but they did not see what was happening right in front of them. They were working their soil. They were removing the trees and the foliage to give them more land to sow their seed. They were doing their job until the dust storms lifted their topsoil into the sky. And it was only then, when it was almost too late, that they saw they needed to change. But change they did. Today we start to see if we overfish the oceans, certain fish will be gone forever. If we mine around the barrier reef, one of the great wonders of the world will be gone. If we keep going the way we've been, people in cities around the world will not be able to see because of the smog. They'll not be able to breathe because of the atmosphere. The science of global warming, do you need science to see what is happening? But the science is as strong as it was in the science of soil conservation. But many do as the farmers at first did back in the 1940s. They don't see. They close their eyes. If you see the world through different eyes, behaviour becomes open to change. The third thing I'd like to say from this story, the man in the gospel story was calling out. He wanted to change. People around him told him to shut up, to accept what he was, to realise he was a nobody going nowhere. You know, this is a story of 2,000 years ago. He could have done what people in our time do, stay put. A nobody going nowhere. Any one of us can do that. I've reached my level. That's enough. That man in the story said, in effect, there is more ahead of me, and I want to be there in it. There is the inspiration for us all. We can leave our closed eyes back there, and we can discover our open eyes. And we too can say, there is more ahead. And there's another passage in the scriptures that we didn't read today, which has an immense importance psychologically, as well as existentially. It says we need to discover the faith that others have found, and with that faith, throw off every encumbrance that drains us of our goodness, and meet the future with positive resolve, aiming at peace and harmony with each other. For no one can reach the best goal in life, it says, without that peace and harmony. The man in the gospel says, I will not stay put. There is more ahead of me. And the fourth thing, one major point in the story really is this. He found somebody who would listen. He found someone who would affirm his worth. He found someone who would open his eyes to his emotional and personality growth. Because all of us, from way back there to the present time, can close off on our emotional and personality growth. And there's one part of the story we don't like, this story. He had to make an effort. The wagon load of good things that we carry. Notice that? The wagon load of good things we carry through life can so easily fall off, fall apart, become part of the leftovers. The good within us, like in any good relationship, involves effort, a decision to correct your life direction, actions to maintain reciprocity in a relationship you value. So many of these things, you see, so easily run flat without some inspiration. Inspiration, too, can run flat. We need in-depth insight. We need to see the world through different eyes. We need to see that there is more ahead of us, and we can be in it. We need to see that personal effort joins with inspiration to lift us into behaviour change. They were 4 points I gave you. There's a fifth. We need to see the need for constant replenishment. Inspiration and behaviour change need constant replenishing. The man in the gospel story is an example of one who has let his life get sidelined. He had adopted behaviours of one who had stopped on the side of the road. We can all imagine this existential catastrophe of being left on the side of the road, deprived of what is so vital in life, convinced that we are so damaged that we can't see any positive way ahead. When that occurs, we all need replenishment. And such are the inroads on our energy, our skills, our goodwill, our generosity, and our general outlook. We need regular replenishment. Otherwise, we can lose sight of what is so important. We can get stuck on the side of the road, discontented, dysfunctional, disaffected. Dr. Mary Jo Peebles, in her book, Beginnings, she said, a patient in the midst of his suffering and the humiliation of feeling convinced he is failing easily loses sight of his abilities or faith in the meaningfulness of his own life and abilities. The task, you see, is to keep alert to the aim and the experience of being a whole person. This means finding the right strengths to go forward simultaneously as we experience our difficulties, our sufferings, and our loss. It is common to lose that positive energy and remain stranded on the roadside, angry and complaining, damaged and destructive. Carl Jung, the psychoanalyst, once wrote, "We moderns are faced with the necessity of rediscovering the life of the Spirit that replenishes us." What can that mean in practice when a person can feel so sidelined, so unreachable in their self-sabotage and self-protections? Repairing damaged places is one thing of importance, great importance. But holding strengths in place is equally important. Changing human behaviour is possible when people see that change is necessary, is possible. But constant inspiration, constant sustaining of positive strengths is vital. Henry Emerson Fosdick knew the elevation of inspiration when he wrote that hymn that we will sing, "Set our feet on lofty places. Gird our lives that they may be armoured with all Christ-like graces in the fight to set men free." Grant us wisdom. Grant us courage, that we fail not man nor thee. As I am trying to develop the next phase of the new faith that I advocate, I am reaching the point again and again when I want to say to those who are complexly involved in their belief systems, in mulling over the biblical texts, in the doctrines and dogma that perplex us, I want to say to them, it is time to embrace a practical psychology, a practical theology, both in new ways. The new faith is not only about what we believe, it is also about human behaviour. And if it is not about human behaviour, then it is no good. It is about the destruction and the protection of the environment. It is about the loss and the recovery of reciprocity in human relationships. It is about finding ways through our terrible human violence to a different worldview where generosity is preeminent. You see, one thing we all need, one thing we all want, one thing we all hunger for, it is that inspiration, to be able to realize we have various reservoirs of inspiration available to us. If only we would tap them and let that inspiration flow through all human life, all human behaviour, we'd be in a very different situation. Why do we not do this? Why do we close ourselves off like the blind man on the side of the road? And there we stay. He didn't stay there. Remember, he didn't stay there. He was ready to make the effort to come forward and say, I want my sight, so that I'll see myself differently, I'll see you differently, I'll see the world differently, and maybe I can contribute to the world in a better way. That's our story. That's our possibility. And there's our inspiration. Would you please stand? We say together the prayer, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And the blessing. May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forwards. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.